Bank of England details digital pound model, calling plans likely by my favorite friend Finn Strather. The UK Treasury stance on the likely need for the digital pound and their proposed model. A technology working paper also released to explain technical designs and concepts. Paper reiterates the BOE's belief that CBDCs like the digital pound can coexist with private stablecoins and fiat cash in a mixed payments economy. Now, the reason I emphasize that is because that seems a little bit contrary to the way the US and the SEC seems to be going. The SEC here seems to be dead set against stablecoins. In other words, they look at all those stablecoin dollars, and there's several varieties of them, and they basically say, we don't want no fake dollars out there. You know, pardon my bad English, just for emphasis there. The SEC seems to want to squash stablecoins in favor of what they're going to introduce as the CBDC dollar. So that will be interesting to watch as that evolves. And that, in fact, may be a different path than what the Bank of England is trying to do. So let's look and see what they are actually trying to do here. Now, their model is listed here in these 12 points. Public-private ownership. Really? Their central bank is not going to own the central bank digital currency for the pound? That's interesting in and of itself. What is going to be the private side of the ownership? The public side, of course, is going to be the Bank of England, which is the Bank of England is the UK's Federal Reserve compared to the US. Okay, the next one is used by households and businesses. Yeah, that's a given. Public digital money issued by a central platform operated by the Bank of England. I understand that one. That works. That's just kind of an assumption when they talk about a central bank digital currency that the central bank's going to actually run it. Duh. Okay. Seamless, exchangeable with other forms of money, including cash and bank deposits. Okay. In other words, the CBDC is going to coexist in a bank as a CBDC account right next to a regular pound, an account where you deposit your paychecks that are in a pound, or your cash that you earn, or your kids' accounts, and all of those monies that are just regular pound accounts right next to the digital pounds. So that's an interesting concept as well. Wallets to hold digital pounds offered by the private sector. So the wallets are going to be part of that private sector. So we're getting a little definition there on how the private sector is going to be involved. Accessed by users through smartphones or cards. In other words, where they're going to have debit cards. Okay. So they're going to have debit cards that you can access your accounts. Okay, that's kind of an assumption. And you can use your smartphones. And we've got a lot of payment systems, Google Pay and Apple Pay and Samsung Pay, for just to name 3 payment systems that are off your phone anyway. So basically they're duplicating in a central bank digital currency what we already have come to expect in the fiat banking system. So privacy is protected like for cards, interesting wording, and bank accounts, but not anonymous. Okay, here we go. We'll come back to this one a couple different times because they approach it a couple different ways. Privacy is protected like cards and bank accounts, but not anonymous. Now, today, none of our deposits are anonymous. A law enforcement agency can go to a judge and say, we have reasonable cause that we need to look at their bank accounts, and up pops their bank accounts, and they can look at them, they can see what transactions we've made. The central bank digital currency will just make it a whole lot easier to do, which is the one thing that scares me about a digital currency owned and run by the government. So here we go. There's going to be no interest paid on it. Okay. When they say no interest paid, I wonder in what conditions are no interest going to be paid? In other words, is no interest paid when it's just in your wallet, or is no interest paid when you've deposited at a bank like a normal savings that would normally earn interest? Okay, that'll be interesting to figure out there. the Bank of England and the government would not see any personal data. Okay, I believe that. Take that right to the bank and...
The Bank of England.
Right, and yeah, chew on that one for a while. So like I said, we'd come back to this privacy issue multiple times. Limited amount per user, at least initially. In other words, they're not going to flood the market with a whole bunch of digital pounds and inflate the currency supply. They're going to be making it available based on the same kind of criteria where they would print literal money and they'd be burning off other money that has, been torn or just, ruined in some way. They put it in a furnace and they replace it with new cash to each bank. So I can understand that one. They don't want to inflate the money supply just because they're going digital. Okay. Accessible to UK and non-UK residents. So in other words, they expect it to be a worldwide currency. If you trade in the pound today, you should be able to trade in the pound tomorrow wherever you are in the world, is what they're saying. So for everyday payments, online and in-store. Okay. That would be an assumption on my part. If it was restricted in any way like that, I doubt that it would go very far when it's actually deployed. So, okay, so that's this one. Now let's go to the next one. And you'll notice that they have not said anything about blockchain here yet. They've not said anything about that type of payment system. In fact, they have stayed away from denoting what kind of software this is going to be that actually runs this payment system that they talk about. So, okay, so the central bank has a core ledger. Now they're calling it a ledger. So that might lead us to believe that maybe it's going to be a distributed ledger type of software, but none of the other components as we go through this appear to follow that blockchain sort of paradigm.
It says central bank ledger. Mm-hmm. I doubt a central bank ledger would be a distributed bank ledger.
Well, they're going to have private banks that are going to be able to be managing as co-partners to this. So you could easily have a distributed ledger, but the ledgers end up at the banks and not in private wallets.
They're also using the term core in there, which I've never heard of before when it comes to blockchain.
That's true too.
Which it could easily be that they're creating a super ledger owned by the central bank.
A centralized ledger.
Yeah, and then everybody else just can copy and paste if they want to.
Yeah, true.
Who knows?
Okay, then there will be an API layer that lets the private sector intermediaries connect to that core ledger. In other words, blocks unauthorized access, only regulated entities can connect to it. So you have to be a bank that's affiliated with the, banking system, an authorized exchange, possibly maybe a stock exchange or something that has to interact with money to buy stocks and then to sell stocks and send the money to you. That type of API layer is going to allow them to connect to the central bank. Okay, then you've got the different types of intermediaries. So they're going to define intermediaries here as payment interface providers and external service interface providers. So they're authorized and regulated forms of people who handle transactions. So it's the stock exchanges, the brokerage houses, the banks, the investment houses, all of those types of people. And then, of course, you've got the users that connect through their wallet, and they would register with intermediaries to access the digital pound. And they just talked about the intermediaries in the previous box. So you're going to have to register your private wallet, the wallet that's going to be distributed or created by the private companies, whatever they are. You're going to have to connect them through one of those intermediaries, such as a bank. So in other words, where people couldn't get a bank account before, they might not still be able to get a wallet after, which means, that banks can still hold the key to you getting into the financial system. Where CBDCs, at least I hear in the US, that CBDCs are trying to help bring in the unbanked. So maybe that's a paradigm shift as well. All right, the next one. Okay, this is the privacy objectives. Okay, now here we go. My favorite page. Neither the government nor the bank would have access to digital pound users' personal data. So that's the way it is, right? Okay, let's read the next screen. Digital pound would not be anonymous. Wait a minute, didn't that just contradict the first one? Because of the ability to identify and verify users is needed to prevent financial crime. Okay, so we're going to make sure that it's private, but that we can still see it because we need to catch the bad guys. And that seems to be the whole excuse they always use to take away freedoms that we currently have with cash that's in our hands that we can spend. So a bit of a difference there that I struggle with. Users should be able to choose from a range of wallet services. In other words, various private companies that are going to have wallet services. Varying levels of identification would be accepted. Users should be able to vary their privacy preferences to suit their needs. What is that? I cannot imagine, after seeing those first two boxes, what kind of privacy preferences the users could adjust that would meet our needs, other than saying, government, stick your nose out of my wallet. Leave me alone. Anyway, we'll see. Enhanced privacy functionality, could result in digital pound users securing greater benefits from sharing their personal data. I don't know about getting more privacy by sharing your data. Okay, so a boatload of contradictions here that I can't explain away. They're just there. They're just okay. It'll definitely follow those know your customer laws and, those laws that have you report if it's over 10,000 or whatever the bank requires at that point. But the Federal Reserve currently requires you to report where the money came from if you're depositing cash over 10,000 that doesn't have a source automatically attached to it. So anyway, that is the roundup for the digital pound. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it at all. I don't know what to think of it because it just seems to be a boatload of contradictions. Move on to our next subject.
Well, we have some comments in the chat.
All right. Also concerning is the ties to a potential social credit score. Yeah, those are creeping their way into the lexicon, aren't they? Yes, definitely. And that social credit score, of course, allows you to spend or not spend or buy certain things or whatever they want to control you with. And so, yeah, that is definitely a concern that I have as well.